Welcome to the Tyler Loop's first ever Candid Conversation. I'm Jane Neal, the Tyler Loop's Executive Director. We know from past elections that as few as 100 votes can swing a local election. City Council elections in Tyler are swiftly approaching, and your vote matters to this city. In this Candid Conversation, you'll hear from 5 of the 6 City Council candidates on the ballot. Kenneth Freeman, Greg Grubb, Stuart Haney, Shirley McKellar, and Bob Westbrook are with us. Our talented community moderators are Dr. Ashley Kutach and Dr. Kent Willis. We hope you'll share this broadcast widely so voters will know the issues impacting our life and future together. Let's begin.
Welcome to the third of 3 sessions in the Tyler Loop's Candid Conversations. Conversations with candidates for Tyler City Council. I'm Kent Willis, a higher education professional here in the community and a community volunteer.
And I'm Ashley Kutach. I'm the Vice President of People and Chief of Staff at Mentoring Minds. Kent, let us introduce our candidate today.
Awesome. This evening, we have the pleasure of having Dr. Shirley McKellar, the incumbent for District 3, who's also an Army veteran, a nurse in the Army for nearly 20 years, a community volunteer, very involved in a number of different organizations, and an ardent advocate for breast cancer awareness. So thank you so much, Dr. McKellar, for joining us this evening. And unfortunately, your opponent was not able to make it, but I'll let Ashley speak a little bit about that.
Thank you, Kent. Yes, Dalila Reynoso was not able to join us today. There was a previous interview with her, and if you'd like to read that on the Tyler Loop, then you can do so. So we'll get started with our questions and look forward to chatting with you. So I'd like to start with just getting to know you a little bit. What do you wish that all Tylerites knew about District 3?
Oh, that's an excellent question. First of all, let me say good evening to each of you, and thank you so much for this opportunity to come before Tyler Loop and the citizens of Tyler to talk about Shirley McKellar and District 3. District 3 is a very important district for me, simply because I was born and bred in Northwest Tyler, and so I want to make sure that the greater good for District 3 happens as well as all parts of Tyler, Texas. So this is a great opportunity for me to talk about what I'd like to see happen in North Tyler.
Great. So tell us a little bit about that area of Tyler.
Okay. So the one thing that I like to say about North Tyler, first of all, is the historical part of Tyler. That's actually where Tyler began. Many people may not know that, but we have something in North Tyler that no other parts of this city has, and that's called Cardwell Zoo #1. So anybody that wants to go to the zoo has to come north. So that's why it's so important that we upkeep our historical area of North Tyler. Secondly, what we have is that no other parts of the city has, and that's Gentry Parkway. That's a 6-lane thoroughfare that we just don't utilize that as much because we don't bring as much to North Tyler as we should, and that's why I proudly serve Northwest Tyler, because I'm going to have my boots on the ground every single day working for the greater good of North Tyler so that it reflects all parts of what Tyler should look like.
All right. Thank you for sharing a little bit about District 3 with us, Kent.
Yeah, just to follow up on kind of that statement, Dr. McKellar, you are the incumbent, so you're running for another term on City Council. What have you done already that reflects the sentiments that you have about the needs in North Tyler?
That's an excellent question. I love that question. Let me begin, first of all, that we know that we're in a pandemic. And so even considering the fact that we were in COVID-19, we were able to accomplish things in North Tyler. Now, at the beginning of the pandemic, obviously, we couldn't get out and have our boots on the ground, so to speak. That's my tag. I'm retired. I am retired military. I did serve the 20 years. But the one thing that we did make happen is that when I first came into the district, there were no city parks. Every park was closed. Now, I was elected in June 2019. Every park there was closed. Now all 3 parks are open, and then there's a 4th park that we thank the late Ed Moore, who served in that position, the Gastaway Park that's in his area where he lived. That park is open as well. So we have 4 parks that are going to be open with that 4th park that's open in North Tyler. We had no parks in North Tyler. As everybody knows, it's really important for families to be able to get together. Children love parks, to get out into the parks. They like to play basketball, they like football, they like kickball. Well, football is soccer to some people. And so all of the things that they like now, we don't have a pool in our city, but we do have waterworks, and those are some of the added attractions that we have in our parks, along with a professional baseball team field there at Wolded Park. So we have Wolded Park, we have Emmett Scott Park, we have Fun Forest Park, and we're still working at that, and then we have Castaway Park. So that's one of the things that happened during COVID-19, shortly after COVID began. The second thing is that I have organized an investment group, because the one thing that I don't want people to think, and that is that North Tyler is a low-income area, even though we want to make sure that we have all types of homes, affordable homes, even the expensive homes. Because the one thing that we are going to have in our area out there is that we're going to have a medical school here in Tyler. This is the medical capital of East Texas. So we're going to have physicians, we're going to have nurses coming in doing their clinicals. They'll be doing clinicals out on 271 at that hospital there. They may not want to travel all the way across to South or to Bullard or to Jacksonville or to any of those areas. They may want to live closer to work, 10, 15 minutes away.
And
so we want to make sure.
That actually leads into a question that I have. So let's jump into this one.
Okay.
When you were asked what promises you fulfilled to your constituents since your last run, you mentioned growth and development in North Tyler and in your district. Where has that growth occurred since you have held the district seat?
Great question. We have something called Tyler First. And so what we have determined is that we need at least 3,000 new housetops in order for businesses to come. But I think that we don't have to wait until those 3,000 housetops. What about the people who already live in District 3? There should be some form of businesses in District 3. When I was growing up, every business that was ever needed was right there in our community. We had our physicians there, we had our dentists there, we had our pharmacists, we had our supermarkets, we had every single thing, because at that particular time, we couldn't even go past Front Street anyways. So I'm working toward bringing businesses into Tyler. I have spoken with lots of businesses, and I tell them the rent's cheap in East Texas, in Tyler, Texas, in District 3. Consider coming into District 3 and opening up some businesses. And I want to start with a supermarket first. We all like fresh fruits and vegetables. Why should I have to travel outside of my district to purchase something as simple as fresh fruits and vegetables? We don't have a market inner city of North Tyler.
Dr. McKellar, let me follow up on a little bit about, you're speaking about housing and rent in District 3. You said in a previous interview that no one should be homeless. Veterans certainly should not be homeless. What is the city's role in eradicating homelessness in Tyler? And what are you doing about it, and how would you take it to the next step?
Perfect question. Love that one, too. These are great questions. I work under the bridge every Saturday prior to COVID-19, working with other organizations. So what is really important is that it's going to take private partnerships along with the city. I know that the city cannot cover every single thing, but we have a lot of homes that can be refurbished to place homeless people in. We have about 50 homeless veterans that live under the bridge all around, and it breaks my heart simply because I am a veteran. I've served this country. Many of them served with valor, but they don't have a place to live. Now, I know that a lot of that could be mental health issues. So what I want the city to do is let's address some of those mental health issues, but also let's make sure that if we have some homes that we can refurbish, that let's place them in. The reason why I know that we can do that is because we just had a power outage, right? And so we worked really hard to get all of those people who were on the streets under the bridge into hotels, into warming centers, and we provided them with coats, blankets, and all those things. So I know that we can find a space to put people in, and rather than sleeping on the streets.
Well, my next question has to do with that very outage that you're talking about struggles that people have gone through. Let's look back at the winter storm that we just recently had, and you said we want to make sure that never, ever happens again. Not the storm, because we can't prevent that, but certainly the struggles that we faced because of that. So how can the city ensure that a crisis like the power and water outages that occurred with that winter storm are prevented in the future?
Great, excellent question. We were all shocked, obviously, that happened to us. Many of us did not know that we were governed by ERCOT. And so what the city has done already is to apply for the finances to help to make sure that our people who experience broken pipes, I was one of those in one of the buildings that we have, my sorority to be exact. But we have money to keep them in their apartments, to keep them in their homes, the mortgage rental, the plain rental for those who rent apartments or other homes. So the city is working to make sure that we are prepared so that we don't ever have that. And we're working in conjunction with not just locally, but obviously the state level as well, because it has to filter from the state down to our city. So we've been able to get funding, CARES Act money. That's also part of COVID-19 and the pandemic. So the city has worked really hard to make sure that people are able to stay in their homes and they get the help that they need in order to fast forward and get past what we're experiencing right now. And we're still experiencing that. There are many people who are still not have their pipes repaired. Mine's one. And so we just want to make sure that people are comfortable, they stay in their homes, and we don't have to have more homelessness in this city.
Right, absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. McKellar, we've spent quite a bit of time here talking about the needs of District 3. Why don't you tell us what citizens in District 3 and outside of District 3 and Tyler, what things are special about District 3? What do you hope that folks that have not had the chance to travel through the district or spend any significant amount of time there, what should they come and do, and what should they learn that they didn't probably already know about District 3?
Thank you for that. We're always looking for volunteers to make sure that we clean up our areas. The one thing that I focused a lot on, and that is that we have to take personally our property and where we live. We have to make sure that we don't have broken down cars that's all in the streets, because I don't want that near where I live. And then keep our yards up to date, keep our porches clean. And sometimes you can drive through the district and you see a lot of just trash and this, that, and the other, that people just don't take that personal interest. And so I push on my town hall meetings to just take it personally, that you want your environment to look nice and you want your neighbor's environment to look nice, but come and help us clean up our area. And you would be glad that you did, because when you drive into this city and you drive into one part of it and it looks one way, and you drive into another area and it looks another way, then it's a reflection on us as our city mothers and fathers that all of our city does not look good. And Tyler is a beautiful city, a beautiful place in which to live, and we want it to be reflected that way in all parts of it.
Excellent. A quick follow-up, if I might.
Sure.
You said earlier in your comments that the city of Tyler began in District 3. We know that there's rich history and heritage in District 3. You have Texas College there, which has quite a historical presence in the city. Speak to us a little bit about the importance of the heritage of District 3.
That's beautiful. Yes. The one thing that I also want to mention about some of the things that are happening in the district, and the old fire station. Of course, you know we have a new fire station there at Gentry and Palace, but the old fire station, the city handed that over to one of our private 501c nonprofit organizations, and now we have the Texas African American Historical Museum there. And so speaking of the HBCUs, we have things there from Texas College, we have things there from Emmett Scott High School here. So it's just important for us to make sure that we keep that rich history, and it is very rich. History in North Tyler, so that when people travel into this city and they're traveling around, not only will we carry them to Harvey Convention in the Rose Garden, and I come from the Rose Fields. My family were agricultural, watermelons, roses, potatoes. So if you drive down Irwin Street in Tyler, Texas, that's my 5 generations grandfather. So I want all of that history to be made known to the people in Tyler, Texas, and around the world. We're the rose capital of the world. So I want people to know that.
Awesome.
I appreciate not only hearing the history of District 3, but just the history of your time with Tyler and following that thread, wanting to get to know you a little bit more. How has your work and life experience formed your style and your perspective on City Council?
That's great. I love that question. I tell everybody all the time, and I always talk to young girls. I serve as the president of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, our local chapter here. And so we work closely with young ladies in encouraging them to get involved in various aspects of education, such as the STEM programs. So I push nursing. For some reason, I love that profession. And I love it because it's a service profession. I come from service. My parents taught me very early that it's not always about the money. My first campaign that I worked on, I was 18 years of age. And so my father asked me the question, how would you like to work on a campaign? And so I said, yeah, how much are you going to pay me? And so, because I heard him say work. And so I related that to money, right? And so he says it's not always about money, it's sometimes about service. So that was my service. So I've been serving all the time. Military, that's a form of service as well. And so I push service to all mankind. And it's not always about the money. Once again, I volunteer my time to many organizations in this city to make sure that even North Tyler grows from my volunteerism.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. McKellar, let's shift pace a little bit. As an incumbent, I think you would agree that it's important for the voters to have a choice. And although your opponent's not able to make it here tonight to be involved in this forum, can you tell us why they should vote for you again and give you another term on City Council as opposed to giving their vote to your opponent?
I absolutely can. There's no candidate that's ever run against me that knows North Tyler the way I do. I was born and bred in North Tyler. I know it like the back of my hand. You've heard our senior citizens say, I know it like the back of my hand. I know something like the back of my hand. I know North Tyler from the beginning to the end. No, I was not here at the beginning, but my ancestors were here. And so I grew up hearing about what Tyler had to offer. I know what they need in North Tyler because I chose to live in North Tyler. I can live any other place, but I returned back after getting out of the military, returned back to my home, always kept a home here in North Tyler. So I always kept up with what was going on, even though I may have been stationed overseas. I could have been anywhere, but I kept up with what was going on. I always sent my vote back to North Tyler. So I can see when I returned back home from the war, North Tyler looked the same as when I left. And so, yes, we had a beautiful new airport, but we lost the supermarket. There were so many losses that I saw in North Tyler. And so I was not happy with that. And when 50 people called a meeting and pulled me together and said, and I thought I was just attending a meeting, a community meeting to talk about various and sundry things, had no idea they were asking me to run for this seat. They said, you've already done the work. As everybody knows, I ran for Congress, and so I've always worked within this city to make sure that the growth and just open up to show people that this city, this part of our city is not growing, and we need to work to make sure that it does grow. So that's
well,
right.
I have a final question to build upon that. Whenever we get into elections, we hear so much about different candidates and so many facts and so many things that they're passionate about. So if you had to pick like three things, like if people remember nothing else about you, you would hope that they would remember these three things about you being a candidate.
Thank you, that's excellent. First of all, I want them to remember this. I'm the only candidate that has found a location to have an office because I want people to be able to find me. I don't want them to have to call around City Hall. We don't have an office there. So I want to say, these are my office hours. I'm going to establish office hours. I'm working on a house right there on Palace Street right now that I'm going to open up and say, I'm going to have this office hours so that you can come to me with your issues. Yeah, they find me. People even that don't even live in my district call me and ask me for assistance. But I work for the people, for the whole city of Tyler. So therefore, I reach out to help anyone. That's the one thing that I want them to remember. The second thing that I want them to remember is that I know this district very, very well. I was born and bred here. I've been pushing housing, pushing things for North Tyler, period. More businesses being brought here. That's the second thing that I want them to know. And then the third thing I want them to know is that I have established an investment group that people are interested in putting resources and funding into North Tyler. And so we've had our meetings. Well, we have to slow down on the meetings right now until things open back up. But we have been talking by Zoom. And so that's what I want them to remember. But let me just add one more thing.
Okay.
And that is we're in COVID-19. And so I want to make sure that the people in my district get the vaccines that want the vaccine. So I have town hall meetings talking to the Black and brown communities, because if you look at the statistics, we have about 16 to 17% Caucasians that have gotten the injections, and about 2 to 3% of people, Black and brown, people who have gotten it, less even in the brown community. So I want to make sure that that equality and equity exist, and those disparities that we have seen in the past does not continue to exist.
I appreciate your passion on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Ken,
All right.
we're right there at
One
the end.
very quick question. We're running out of time here, but I want to give you a chance to address this question that we've asked every other candidate, and it has to do with race relations in the city of Tyler. What is the state of race relations? What can we do to improve? Just in 30 seconds.
Wow. Yeah, you asked me a strong question in 30 seconds. On the 25th of this month, I'm having a prayer vigilant in Harvey Convention parking lot. People are to remain in their vehicles. And we're going to talk about those issues that we're experiencing, how to break this cycle of racism. And what we have to do, we have to start teaching our children down here from the crib. And so once we teach them from the crib that all people are born equally, God made us all the same, we're all equal. And so once we teach them early enough, then we can help to eradicate that. And then let me just speak to Mayor Don Warren, who has established within our city a race relations group. And I'm actually on that group. And so we have already had some meetings about how we can eradicate along with that pandemic. We got so many pandemics going on. We have the COVID, we have racism, we have economics. I mean, you name it, we have it. So, and my next town hall meeting will be quickly is how Black and brown people can move from the disparities and the pandemics that they're in right now, and how to prepare for the next one coming along. Not just Black and brown people, but people, period. How can we prepare for what the next ones are coming up? So I want to see some changes made. That's why people should vote for me back into office, because I have studied politics. I went back to school to get my degree in it so that I could know city government, state government, and federal government. All aspects of government I have studied, and I know it. I'm the best candidate for the position. So re-elect Shirley McKellar back to City Council District 3.
Thank you so much, Dr. McKellar.
Yes, sir.
And to our viewers, early voting runs April the 19th through the 27th, and Election Day is on May 1st. And let me say on behalf of my co-host here, Ashley Kutach, and I'm Kent Willis, we appreciate you for tuning in to Tyler Loop's Conversations with the Candidates for Tyler City Council.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Have a good evening.
Thank you.